attention coaches, healers, practitioners, and seekers. If you want a system of integration and you want to apply it to any experience, I want you to come discover the Condor Approach. It's a revolutionary method that's going to help transform every area of your life. So if you want to make breakthroughs last, and you don't want breakdowns to last so long in the psychedelic space and beyond, come check it out, because we're going to help you from preparation to navigation to integration and really break down what to track, what metrics matter in every body, because it's the most important step when it comes to growth. So come to the Condor Approach, condorapproach.com, and we will see you there. Because you already know integration is not optional, but how you integrate is.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration. Leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Todd Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Where do I even start? My heart is so full of gratitude to Cole and Ta and their entire team. Be enveloped in this community is hands down the most positive experience that I've ever had in a coaching container, in a community container, an intentional community, and as far as my personal transformation goes. This is the most potent, powerful, and heartwarming experience I've had in my life. And I've been around the self-help and spiritual block.
Welcome back to the podcast.
The podcast. The podcast.
Where we talk about
the
stuff
podcast.
and things and
The
family
psychedelic
dynamics
coach
and
for you.
emotions and speaking your body's language too.
Bling. What up, y'all? Hey, Cole.
What's up, Todd Whitty?
How you doing, gorgeous?
I'm doing. You know, we're into the, I say, pre-event season now, where we're getting geared up and the room's sold out, and there's a buzz this time that's got me super excited about all the things and puts us perfectly in alignment for today's conversation around the 4 Ns process,
4 Ns.
which is the framework we use for everything.
Everything.
Our relationship, our business,
Everything.
the events, everything.
Everything.
So I think that it's the perfect time to go deeper in explaining what the 4 Ns process is. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but we're going to approach it a little different today.
Yeah, you know, the 4 Ns process is not something that I just do to teach people around psychedelics or psychedelic integration or coaching at all, for that matter. It's everything that I do in my life is a process that just takes me through the 4 Ns. Mm-hmm. And those 4 Ns are intake, intention, in space, and integration. And they're all part of the integration process. Well, and we're going to dive deep into each one of those things. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how this process affects our relationship.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it built our relationship. We just didn't have a name for it.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, so basically this is, I'm going to do a really quick rundown and then we can talk about the fine points later on. Intake is when you do an inventory on something, when you kind of do an assessment to see what's going on. Then an intention is what do you want to know, do, be, or understand with the information that you just got. Being in space is the in space of living your experience or having your transformation or whatever is happening. And then integration is how do you meld all of those things from those first 3 parts, the intake, intention, and in space. How do you meld all of that with your day-to-day life, with the people around you, with your money, with your body, with your nutrition? How do you get all of that stuff to cooperate together? And in our relationship, I found that this were the tenets of our relationship that actually built the Condor Approach as we moved through all of the psychedelic experiences that we had together. And when we first started to hang out, we kind of did an inventory on each other. We asked a lot of questions. We spoke a lot of our truths and we laid everything out on the table. during our psychedelic experiences where we got to let our guards down, we had these really amazing openings where we got to actually share our information. And in that sharing of information, that's an intake process. You started to take in information on me. I started to take in information on you. And we got to lay everything out. And we also got to bring things up from our own pasts to lay on the table. One of the things that is really important for me to share is I had insomnia for 30 years. And when you came to stay at my house that first night, I slept for almost 6 hours.
And it wasn't because the bump chicka bump.
No, I slept for almost 6 hours, and I didn't understand why I slept. And then when I backtracked, I went back and it was like, what happened that night? And I told you all of these things that I had never told anybody. So I didn't even get to sit and address these things in front of another human being. So I got to lay all these things out on the table.
Well, it was like our first, what we call upside down bed night, where it was like just sit and just talk and share. And I think that, you know, especially when we were doing a lot of couples work, so like 2018 to 2021, kind of that period.
Yeah.
So often it was always shocking, actually, at least initially, how many couples never at the beginning of the relationship had deep conversations around what they wanted, what they expected, what they hoped for, you know, kind of what we talked about on the last episode around boundaries and requests. From the beginning, we talked through like everything. I told you stuff I never told nobody.
And we had all these different scenarios.
And we come from very different cultural backgrounds. I'm like white culture, Utah. You're coming from Brooklyn in the 70s and 80s in particular. And yet the way that we communicated, the way that we held space for each other and to the best of our ability at that time, the way we kept showing up when it wasn't easy, when there was walls, when there was fear, when there was all of that stuff, we showed up. I had never had anyone show up the way that I felt I had showed up. And to watch you do that was inspiring, and it inspired me to be brave.
And this is any part of the 4 Ns process is going to take some courage. You know, that bravery is tremendously important to do an intake, to actually face yourself, to face the things that have been going on with you. It was terrifying for me. And to have a safe space for me to do that, I really appreciate you more than words can express. And I tell people all the time, the reason I was able to go into my first psychedelic experience is because I trusted you so much.
Yeah, which was a lot of pressure.
You know,
self-imposed on a certain degree, but I had never recommended, asked, or suggested anyone do it ever. And I'd already been in it for like 6 years at that point. Mm-hmm. But that, you know, I had been indoctrinated into no, someone needs to do it for themselves, which is true. But I knew at that point it was kind of like the only thing that I could see that could help you see the parts of yourself and some of the truths that were happening. And honestly, there was a part of me that was like, if I just don't see how even like this relationship could develop any further if you didn't get into that work, because there were some core things around like worthiness or how you showed up for everyone else. And you showed up for like your workout practices, but there was other components that, you know, when you fractured your L5-S1 and couldn't walk for 3 months, I was watching some of that like self-loathing and things I recognized from my own journey. You know, and so when we first started having the conversations, or our intake process, the first of the 4 Ns, we were able to really, like, what do you want out of your life? You know, we both wanted to travel. We both, and already had been. And I think that's another key distinction, Ta, is in our intake process, we were both already doing what we wanted to continue, that we both had some fear or trepidation in relationships, because I think a lot of people want things. You and I were actively creating many of those things in our own way at that time, and saw the opportunity that we could come together and co-create them.
Right. And that's what fortifies the intention process.
Yes.
Right. And so no matter what you're doing, you always have an intention, whether it be a conscious intention or an unconscious intention. We're looking, what do we want to know? What do we want to do? Who do we want to be? What do we want to understand from whatever it is that we're doing? If I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, there's an intention. And there's an intention to keep my mouth clean, or an intention to want to be kissable. Whatever it is, there are intentions.
An intention to keep your teeth.
Right. There's an intention. Right. And so the more you have, the more information you have in your intake process, the cleaner your intention can be, because you have all this information, you have all this data. And so I can sit here and say, I want to be a millionaire. I intend to be a millionaire. Okay, what's behind that intention? What was your inventory before that?
Yeah, like why?
Okay. Well, my parents were broke and we never had any money, and I want to have this life for my kids. Once you lay all this stuff out, you start to see the reality before you, and the potentials, and how you can strategize around that.
Well, it's like you're fortifying the purpose behind the outcome that you want, because I think that often people don't even kind of get more of the backstory of to why it's even important for them to have this intention. And so it's as we started to craft what we wanted for our own lives, then we started to go, this is what, if I was going to be in a partnership, this is my ideal partnership. And then it was like, oh, me too. And not me too from like complacency or not wanting to be alone. We were both very clear in who we were as people at that point. And when we first met, we were both like, marriage, not me. Nope, I did that already.
But you leave space for things to change.
Exactly.
And that's when we talk about the integration wave, we'll get into how that can work with people. We're constantly going through the intake, intention, and space integration. Intake, intention, and space integration. It's just a rolling situation that's always happening with us. And with our relationship, we decided to have an integrated intention. And this is why when we talk about integration, this is so important.
And it's not psychedelics. That's just like a sexy way that people just search now for integration.
Psychedelics are wonderful. And integration is involved in everything that we do. And that's what we teach at the Condor Approach. We teach integration. It's establishing a relationship with yourself and in relationship with the environment and the people around you. And when we have an inventory where I'm doing an inventory, an intake on myself, you're doing an intake on yourself, we do an intake on each other, we bring all this data together. And then we're like, what do we want to do with all this? Then let's make an intention. What do we want to know? What do we want to do? Who do we want to be together or apart, right? And what do we want to understand from all of this? And so that's what we did with our relationship. You were like, well, I just want to ride it till the wheels fall off. And I was like, I'm down with that.
I'm like, this is fun. This couldn't possibly last.
But that was our intention at the beginning. And so this is one of the things around why we reestablish our relationship every year. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So when we move from that intention space, it's like, okay, we had this intention to ride it till the wheels fall off, to have the greatest time, to have the most amount of fun, to have the greatest sexual situation between us. We had this as our intention. And so we moved into the space of actually enacting all of that. Yeah. And we transformed ourselves as individuals and our relationship by being in a process that we were both participating in with all of the intention that we created. And we are now moving into the space of changing.
Well, and that's where, we were co-creating boundaries and systems and structures. What we talked about on the last podcast, that we weren't drawing boundaries, we were creating them together.
Right.
And one of the things that we said is that everything comes to the table for discussion.
Right.
So nothing is no. Everything comes to the table for discussion. That also doesn't mean yes. It's that we would talk through whatever a person's needs, desires, goals, dreams, things that aren't working for them, and it comes to the table. And that was something that, we both said from the beginning, we wanted radical honesty, but it's like for each of us, and I'll speak for myself, that was also, I wanted to believe it, like I really did. And I remember the first time I was like almost sweating to even send the text where I was like, look, I don't want to play all those games. If you want to call me or text me, just do. If you don't want me to call or text you, just tell me. But I don't want to do that game of, all right, well, I'm not going to call you for 2 days because I don't want him to think that I'm desperate or I'm thinking about him too much. It was, I'm done. Like I am done with that whole game. I don't want to play that game. And you were like, that sounds great, actually. Like fantastic. And so when I watch the dating space now, mm-hmm. and, we've helped people craft their dating profiles and stuff like that, because a big part of the problem is people aren't even showing up with the radical honesty of the person they say they want. And, it's like me and you joke at times of like creating profiles just to prove that, of course, you're not getting the people that you want. You're not even showing up on these digitals. You say you want people to be forefront, or upfront and honest, but you're not even exhibiting that on your dating profile.
I had to help a few friends change their dating profiles because they were putting a bunch of fluff.
Yep.
And I was like, this doesn't sound like you to me. And so if you were to present me with this and I walked into this situation looking for the person on this profile and then the real you came out later on, I'd be quite disappointed. I'd feel unsafe. Like there's a lot of things around that. And so multiple of the people that I helped with their dating profiles were like, well, I'm not getting the numbers that I want to see, the amount of responses. I said, perfect. You don't want people responding just to be responding, because that's the people you're going to have to filter out.
Yep.
When you're very particular about things, you filter out all the people that are going to waste your time.
Yep.
So this is where
it saves you time and energy, actually.
This is where having doing the intake on yourself and doing the inventory, being intentional about things, and then moving into the space of the transformation. And then, so taking it back to our relationship, we moved into these transformational spaces, and then we stopped and we reevaluated, how do we want to integrate this with the work that we're doing. Right. We were doing fitness challenges together. We were doing diet stuff. We had people losing weight. We started to integrate our relationship with how we interacted with other people. We started to integrate our relationship with the people that were asking us to come to journeys and be integrators inside of the psychedelic experiences. We started to bring our relationship into that space.
Well, and this is where, when we run into people or couples where they're like, oh man, I couldn't work with my spouse. And like we co-created this from the beginning because we wanted to spend more time together. And it's like anytime, so when we met, you were a personal trainer and you were nursing. So you would work, a few shifts at the hospital a week, sometimes a month if you were going on tour or traveling. But then you would go to the hospital at 7 p.m. You'd finish at 6 o'clock so that you could come do personal training sessions at the park, the boot camp, Underground Celebrity Fit Club.
That's right.
That's right. And I would commute 45 or 50 minutes because that time in the morning in Brooklyn, there's no way to really get a good path from Bed-Stuy to Flatbush.
And there was no Uber and Lyft then.
Well, I didn't have bread for, even if there was.
There was no Uber.
No, but there's the Blacktown cars, right? You can call a car.
That wasn't going to be economical.
No, but even an Uber wouldn't have been now, right? And so for me to take the train would take me about 45 minutes, but it's 3 miles. So it also isn't walkable in that amount of time for me at that point. And so, and at that time of morning, you're not going through that area of Bed-Stuy. But anyway, and so I would come to the park and your personal training. And then you were like, you should become an insanity instructor. You got my form all solid. You were training me a couple days a week. Plus I was going to your insanity classes and all the different places you were doing it. So then we started running the fitness challenges together. Mm-hmm. So it was that intake, intention, in space, integration. So it's been this continual process of that integration wave you talk about.
Yeah. So the integration wave is a way to visualize integration. And if you could imagine a roller coaster or a sound wave that goes up and down like humps, right? My lovely integration humps.
My humps, my humps, my humps. My integration humps. Check it out. I can't. I was going to try to go into the intake.
All that intention.
Wait. Intake, intention, and space integration. Nah, it doesn't work, bro.
What you gonna do with all that intention?
Nah, bro.
All right. Well, keep it moving. So, if you were to imagine a roller coaster, at the base of the roller coaster, you have the place where you get ready to get on, right? And so you're online, you're thinking about it. What you're doing an intake on yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. What am I? Have I ever been on a roller coaster before? What's gonna happen? What happens if I fall out? You start doing this inventory.
Or it's when you first get in the roller coaster and you're like, is the lap bar down right? Look how high that hill is.
But that's the low part, right?
Yeah.
And so you get on that first part. And you get in, and now you're strapped in. And then it's like, okay, well, what's my intention as I start going up that first hill, right? Tick, 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 tick,
I'm going to do arms up. I'm going to scream.
And
it's going to be
it's
fun.
like, what do I want to know?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to do? Who do I want to be on this ride? And what do I want to understand by the time I get to the top of that first hill? And so that's where your intention is. And then as you start to drop down that first hill, you're in the space. Right. So your intention, all the things you thought about beforehand, all of that stuff.
It's straight up nitro at Six Flags in New Jersey, bro.
That's right. My favorite roller coaster in the world. So you start to go down and you're in the space. Now you're here, you're gathering the information. Oh my gosh, I'm terrified. It feels amazing. There's exhilaration. There's all these different things. And so you come down the other side And then it's like, okay, I'm going to integrate this for the next one, right? Oh my gosh,
Here
that was
comes the
crazy.
next
That was
hill.
crazy. I'm going to hold on tighter, or my intention is now to let my hands go on the next one. And so I'm integrating what happened on that first drop, and then I go back up, and then I can start to apply this as things go. And so that's how life goes. Intake, intention, in space, integration. Intake, intention, in space, integration. And it's going at a really
Again.
fast pace all day long in your life. And so what we do at the Condor Approach is we get people to actually slow down and pinch and expand and really look at the fine parts of that wave. And so we can look at the intention portion. What do I want to know? At the intake portion, what's happening with me? Where am I? What's going on with me? And then we go into the intention. What do I want to know, do, be, or understand? Cool, I'm going into the drop. I'm dropping into the space, and I'm riding the ride all the way down through the fast parts, through all of whatever's happening in that space, and then I integrate. I put all the things together. How am I going to carry this into my family life? How am I going to carry this into all of the spaces around me? How am I going to do these things? And we do this with a great amount of intention through the whole process.
So when we first started to shift into, so we were doing the fitness challenges, when I even look back at how we were working with personal training clients and then we still were going through this 4-ins process. We would do an intake with the clients. Like when I would do 6-week challenges at like Ludlow Fitness and places in Manhattan that I taught classes, it was a 4-ins process. People would come in for the intake day. We'd do before photos. We would do the body fat percentage. They'd get on the scale. That was all an intake process, right? And then we'd go into their intention setting on the first session. What do they want to know, do, be, or understand from the 6-week insanity challenge, where they'd come 3 or 4 days a week to work out with me, like as a group. And then the integration at the end, we would always chat with people, whether it was the online challenges or in person, about like, what does this mean moving forward? Do you want to start the next challenge that's coming up in 2 weeks? So do you want to continue on this path? Or what's the next goal? What's the next thing that you want to do? And it's a new intake process of just like, let's evaluate now where you are in contrast to where you want to go for that like movement forward. And it's so beautiful to look back now that what the Condor Approach is built on is actually a structure we've always had. And I have so much gratitude for your nursing background and the way that you triage and take care of people, because I feel so much of that created the 4-ins process.
Thanks for that. And, we created that together. It moved through us together. We just came to a realization space after you had that big 10-gram journey, right? All this stuff, I had to pull all this stuff together and show people what it is that we do. And so I sat there, and then I had things move through me in the middle of the night. It's like, no, there's intake, there's the 4-ins process. And you were like, oh, that's so brilliant. I'm like, you're welcome from the aliens, right? But this is how we translate this and give people a really solid, easy format to follow. Intake, intention, in space, integration, everything in your life can fall into those 4 spaces all the time. From tying your shoes to brushing your teeth to taking a shower to cooking your food, it falls into everything. And you can do this process with everything. Okay, I want to, you do an inventory on yourself. Man, I feel like I weigh too much, or I'm not strong enough. And okay, cool. What are you eating? How are you eating? What time of day are you eating? What's the quality of the food? Are you eating organic? You're doing an intake on yourself. And then it's like, okay, what's my intention? Okay, my intention is to lose body fat so that I could feel beautiful or sexy or energetic or run with my kids.
Fit on the rides with my kids.
Whatever it is that your intention is. Okay, cool. And so then we move into the space of intention. And then when we're in the process of in space, that can be having realizations, creating a plan around things, making a strategy about this. How am I going to transform my life? And the transformation space is the in space. That's in space. You're transforming like optimum prime, right? You're transforming. And then how do you take that transformation and how do you apply it to your life? How do you apply it to the people that may not be part of your transformation, that may not understand? How do you get them into a place where they can support you, where the environment actually supports your transformation and being long-standing? And that I feel like is the most important thing with us at the Condor Approach is we have had people have long-standing transformations because they get their environment to support them. All of this is about relationship with myself, relationship with the environment, the people in the environment, the foods I eat, the things I do. All of those things are very important.
Yeah, when I think about because when I when we were dating, and then dating is such a weird word. When we were hanging out, whatever the word is,
We were horizontal buddies. Anyway,
yeah, that.
horizontal mambo partners.
You know, we keep it classy here at the Condor Approach.
Horizontal mambo.
So then I started staying at the house. And one of the things, even at the beginning, you know, when it comes to this intake process, is I said to you that I was not going to move in under the convenience of time or money, you know, or energy. Because in the past, I got in relationships where we would move in together or travel together to save money. Because it was like, well, if I'm sleeping here most of the time, it makes more sense for us to just live together. And this time I was like, oh no, I had my place on St. John's Hood place. Like,
What a place that was.
Dude. So I kept my place on St. John's is that Crown Heights technically?
Crown Heights.
Yeah. And then I was staying at your house more. And then the next intake to intention to in space to integration was, so then I got someone to sublet my room so that we could continue testing that out. And I was only subletting my room 30 days at a time. And I did that for about 3 months. And then it was at that point that you were like, go get your stuff, come move in. Like, let's do this. And so we were consistently doing that intake, intention, in space. Then we integrated it. And then it was like, okay, now that we're staying together more frequently, then I started to, quote unquote, stay there full time, but I did not give up my apartment. So then I started to sublet it for 30 days at a time. Then I gave up the apartment. And I think that by us, and it still wasn't like we didn't move, well, I'll say efficiently, but when we first started, we were like, marriage, I don't need any of that. Living together, nah, I'm good. Like all of those things that as we kept growing and showing up, there was no one else I wanted to spend my time with. It was just every time I had a funny YouTube video or a great day or a hard day or anything, it was you. Like I wanted to call and tell you. I wanted to be around you. And that intake, intention, in space integration, creating a business. Okay, well, what do you want to create together? Well, let's create fitness challenges. And it was like continually deepening together, working together, and you still have your private clients and your practice and the things that you love to do with that. So it's not like we don't also have separate things that we love, but it's been such a gift to learn, go through, model, and perfect the 4INS process with you.
It has been. It's been wonderful to do all of this with you. And when we look at our relationship every year, I mean, look, September 3rd is coming up quick, right? And we're about to sit down and do our whole process of our relationship over, you know, and every year we do this. This is one of the things that people are like, I want a relationship like yours. And we're always like, are you willing?
Are you sure?
Are you willing to do what it takes to be in this type of dynamic? Are you willing to put all your stuff on the table and look at it? Are you willing to say, look, this last year was cool, it was great, but this part didn't work for me. And, you know, are we going to continue, right? And so this is something that we ask each other every year. Are we going to continue? And we come from a place of love of self and love of each other. But it's like, you know, this didn't work for me. So what, you know, this didn't work for me. This sucked. I love this. I love this. I love this. I want to do this. This is what I want to expand and grow into. This is what I want to work on. And you bring that to the table as well from your side. And then it's like, does this clash? Does it line up? Is this what we want? How do we strategize on it? What do we want to do with all this information that we just put on the table? And sometimes it can be pretty scary.
Yeah.
You know, we've had some moments where, and we never argue, right? And
No.
but there are some things.
And we have never insulted each other in 11 years.
Nope.
Never, not once.
Will not.
Not you're stupid, this sucks,
Will
you're
not.
a bitch, you're an like that has
Will not.
never same. Well, we did that was a decision, a boundary we created together to say that that's not an option. Like we'll slow down, we'll take space, we'll breathe, we'll do what we need to, but that is off the table.
No, we craft safety into our relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the foundational tenets of the Condor Approach too, is safety and crafting safety into all of our relationships. And particularly with this relationship here, we model safety in ourselves, you know, taking care of ourselves as an individual
That's where
first.
it has to start.
I have to take care of me in order to
Yep.
bring a whole person to this interaction. And if I feel like I'm not safe with you, I have to alert you. right? And because it may not be something about you, it may be some old childhood trauma or some old relationship trauma coming to the surface, and you may be able to support me in that. And we've had stuff like that come up, but it's having that inventory, having the space where we actually talk to each other and lay all this stuff out on the table. And it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do with this year? What is the intention? Do we intend on growing deeper? Do we intend on coasting? Do we intend on what are the intentions? What are our intentions for our bodies? What are our intentions for our sexuality? What are our intentions for interacting with other people and having friendships? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? And it's like, okay, this is what we want to do. And then we go into the space of actually living that. And in that place where we're actually living that, it's like, okay, what's the strategies? And this is where we have things like the states assessment that we do in Condor 2, which is a whole other ball game. But we do set up strategies around these things, and we live in those strategies, and then we reevaluate again towards the end of the year. We start to do a reevaluation, in which is the reevaluation is another intake process.
Yeah, this is where, especially when we were working with couples in particularly, I'll tell you the greatest gift we ever had for our relationship was working with other couples, because the depth of gratitude it gave me for you and to really understand how much work we put in at the beginning of our relationship, that we watched other marriages fall apart for a fraction of what we've been through together. Yep. And it's that radical self-responsibility piece and understanding what creates safety in us individually. We would never fight for the marriage. Like, that's not even in our vernacular.
Nope.
And yet so many times people would say, well, we have to fight for the marriage. The marriage is just this piece of paper. It is a third construct outside of the two of us. We would never fight for the marriage. Now, we have decided and continued to decide to this point that we want to be together. That has nothing to do with marriage. That has nothing to do with whether I'm your wife. It has to do with me as Cole, the individual self outside of the marriage. I'm making choices in my life of what I want to be around, what I want to be influenced by. And it's the most important decision that I could possibly make, is who I put myself around the majority of the time.
Amen.
And I have continued to say it's you. And the way you inspire me and the way you take care of yourself, it is, like, to me, the greatest gift. And it's something that I knew coming into this, the things that I wanted and the things I was willing to continue to grow to be or to become, or that I wanted support in. And so this is something that people, if they would do the internal work on themselves, that is where the relationship starts. It takes the two individuals create that third entity that is the relationship or the marriage. And so if you don't do that work on yourself and then you blame the marriage, oh, I'm in a bad marriage, I'm in a toxic marriage is a co-created dynamic, which means if you're participating in a toxic marriage, you are co-creating a toxic dynamic. Now this has nothing to do with domestic violence or anything like that. It is at some point you recognize that you are the common denominator of the dysfunctional relationships you keep ending up in. And there's a radical self-responsibility that until you're willing to look at that and be brave enough for that responsibility. I have never blamed my ex-husband for my first marriage of what worked and what didn't work. When we got divorced, I said, I'm going to figure out how I enabled and contributed to the dysfunction so that I don't repeat it. Because it still takes two people to participate in a dysfunctional dynamic. And by removing myself from one, I didn't want to just put myself into another one. And that's where, in coming into this relationship, doing the intake process, and as we continue to, every year on September 3rd, sit down with poster boards, spread it out on the floor. We don't start first with what kind of marriage do we want. We start separately of what do we want this next coming year? What are our goals? What are our visions? What are our dreams? Then we come together and say, yeah, me too. Yeah, I love that. Hey, I don't really vibe with that. So how do we fulfill that need, whether that is sexually, physically, emotionally, spiritually, travel, business, whatever, so that one person is never sacrificing. We talk and dialogue until we agree on a solution, an answer, or a next step. Like you and I have never sacrificed to be here. I have not given up something so that I could be with you. I either reprioritized, or after hearing your perspective, realized actually that's not really what I want. That's what I thought. But now that I'm hearing your side of things, now I get what you mean. So it's that back to the intake, then the intention. What do we each want individually? Then come together of how does this fit together for the next year? Then we go in the space of the year. And now we're in that process of integrating. Really, the last 2 years have been a doozy. I'm integrating currently because I feel a new energy and a new space. So I'm excited for this September 3rd with you to create what's on the horizon for us, for the Condor Approach, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing all that. We're on the same page. I mean, on a very similar page anyway. But this is it, Cole. We have been able to craft a relationship that people are like, that don't seem real. How do y'all never argue?
Well, no one believed it at the beginning.
How is it that y'all are never against one each other? I'm going to punch my partner in the face all the time. I never want to do anything violent to you or anything like that. Never. Because I recognize my own stuff, because I'm always doing an intake on myself. What's coming up for me? What am I feeling? I use all the tools that we teach in the Condor Approach. I use all of them.
I mean, we use them on stage at the Condor Approach.
Listen, if something's going down at the between us at the Condor Approach, everything has to stop.
Yep, we handle it in real time.
And that's one of the things that sets us aside, I feel like, from everybody that I've ever
there's
seen
no
be on
behind
stage.
the back door.
That's couples and stuff. People will be all smiley on stage, and then they'll go in the back and be arguing and yelling and shooting each other out. If there's a challenge, we move through the challenge, and the room of people will hold space for it. It's not therapy. We're not looking for anybody else to fix us or anything like that. But this is how we model this.
Well, we have to align. If we're going to be in service of people like this, we have to be in alignment.
Well, what I was saying was there's an idea that we have to do things behind closed doors to keep people out of our business, because we feel like our business is not safe or it's not sacred or whatever. Everything, I have nothing to hide from anybody, and I don't know that you have anything to hide from other people, but I know I don't. And I will always ask, hey, listen, you want to navigate this here? I will always ask for that permission, right? That's my intake. I'm checking in to see if you're there. Radical consent is part of an intake process, right? That's do I have your consent to speak about this, to have this information, to share this information or whatever? All of that stuff is very important. And so us being able to speak our truth at the Condor Approach inspires other people to speak their truth in front of their kids.
A lot of times it's their biggest takeaway is seeing us actually model what we're teaching.
The thing is, if I can't speak my truth in front of my kids, because this is grown folk stuff or all of that, my kids, my kid may know something is going on. My daughter's an adult now, but I'm talking about like my grandson. Like he knows when something's off with him.
They can feel it.
He knows when something. He tells me all the time, I know something's going on with my mom and my dad, but they won't tell me. Right? He knows, so he'll come and he'll tell me. And so these ideas that we have to keep our kids safe from who we are and what we are is an idea. And this is old school stuff. And this is a space where we oppress our emotions. We oppress the expression of our emotions, our thoughts, and all of these things. And it gets pushed down in a Pez dispenser to come out later on as dis-ease, as illness, as dysfunction in a family unit, as outbursts, as anger, as throwing shit, as violence. All of these things come up. And when we are able to express in front of other people, a lot of stuff comes up. And so this is for us, for the Condor family, right? The Condor, the Condor community of people is they see who we are. And so they can do an intake on us and see if this is the community and the type of people that they want to be around. And if they don't, they can keep it moving. And there are people who have come to Condor and are like, this is too much. This amount of realness is too much for me.
Look, for a nervous system, it is. It can be. And I always want people to honor that within themselves if it's too much for their body at that time. That's why from the first morning, we tell people that at any point, here's how you get support. Go talk to so-and-so, inform us. We are going to put your safety in your hands to let us know. And we come with terms of engagement so that people, because until someone can take responsibility for their own emotional safety in this type of environment. And even if they don't know what to do, if they like how to work with it, knowing where to go if they need support's important. And a lot of transformational spaces are not doing that, where I see unintentional harm happening, where there's these like big topics or big emotions come, but there's no like healing support team, and it's like we have such an incredible, we call it the healing tent, but it's really, we tell people if something comes up, because we go into sexism, racism, traumas, dramas, things that people weren't expecting or anticipating to come up, but we can't pause the whole thing for 3 hours if someone's in a longer process. So it's knowing how to craft the containers, because we do an intake, intention, in-space integration of doing an inventory every day when we start around safety, reminding people that you're welcome to cry, scream, burp, fart, whatever needs to express. We have everyone get into consent, and that is free to change at any moment, how you can remove yourself, how to get support when needed. And then beyond that, we ask people to raise their hand if they agree to take responsibility for their own safety.
Y'all want to, how am I learning to integrate all of these pieces and parts of myself after breast cancer? How am I integrating my finances and the damage, the absolute freaking destruction? Blew my life up, blew my chest up, blew my relationships up, blew my body, my nervous system, blew everything up. How do you bring that all back together? For me, it has been the Condor Approach. Simple, pure, easy. Click the link, go. Tell Cole I sent you.
And of course, there's still possibilities for people pleasing and fawning and all that within it. But to the best of our ability, to the most comprehensive we can imagine, with such large groups of very diverse people from culture and age and religion and demographic across the board, our container will stretch people no matter how much work they think they've done. And give them the opportunity to see parts no other container can show them, which again requires bravery. And if nothing else, you have to at least know how to pause, pull back, take a physical scan, and then proceed. And that's why it's one of the first key concepts that we teach. Because even if you don't remember any of the 4 ins, even if you never come to the Condor Approach, the power of a pause is the first step to changing everything before you react. And for us, pause, pull back is literal sometimes, where we pause, we feel that charge of emotion, we take as many steps back as necessary to diffuse some of that energy so that we can stay in the room and communicate, because in our initial intake process, and that what we always come back to is, I'm on your team. I love you. I am never out to get you. I am never here to ever put you down. I only want to lift you up. And anything that feels otherwise, we pause, pull back, take a physical scan, go into the 4 ins, do an intake.
The physical scan is an intake.
It is.
That's an intake.
In space. Mm-hmm. And then we integrate back in with each other. And so y'all, if you're listening, like, we're going to keep saying it over and over again, that coming to the Condor Approach, all the copy online talks about psychedelics, but the truth is, it's because no one's searching, how do I integrate after divorce?
And then people come to the Condor Approach and they're like, man, I need to send this person. I need to.
Yeah.
And
this has nothing to do with it. I
actually had somebody hit me up 2 days ago and was like, hey, me and my partner don't do psychedelics, but, we got this stuff happening. I'm like, come. Yeah. This is about relating. It's about how you relate. And we use a psychedelic informed lens where people who are experiencing psychedelics can definitely use these techniques, these tools in the psychedelic space before their experience, during their experience, and after their experience. This is where this is. I don't know anybody else who teaches integration the way we do. Nobody. And we've had people come from other integration formats and certifications and all of this stuff. Nobody is teaching the tools that we're teaching.
Well, Todd, they can't.
It's time for that to change.
Well, they can't, because they don't have the in-person practicum. They don't have the in-person component. I mean, imagine having a brain surgeon come operate on you that only ever studied brain surgery or any kind of surgery for that matter. It was funny, I just sent an email to our list yesterday where I was like, one of Ta's colleagues, who is in fact a brain surgeon, said actually brain surgery is one of the easiest once you know it, but the emotional complexes and the other aspects of being human are much more challenging than brain surgery as far as how to navigate it. And so the in-person component is when you're taking all these concepts that most people already know. We're just putting them in a framework so they know how to apply it and when to apply it. We're putting the cute little schematics and little ways for them to see where they are in their activations and how to map their emotions, how to translate their body's cues, how to really be who they know themselves to be, like their true authentic self when they're not being triggered, when they're not being manipulated by, election years or Olympics or whatever else is going on in the world. The Condor Approach is the framework, it is the container for you to drop all your knowledge you already have into in a room of people not like you as far as their lived experiences, but committed to wanting to walk the walk. They want to be brave. So there's going to be imperfections. There's going to be mistakes, which also where that bravery piece comes in of taking ownership. We have people in the community that have been cast out of other communities for being quote unquote predatory or not handling things properly or whatever. And you and I have stayed committed to, if we're really going to be about healing, then it is for everyone. It's that it takes a deeper framework, commitment of intake, intention, in space, integration, radical honesty, having enough self-confidence to know the skill sets, knowing that you have support within community and people that as much as they're going to reflect back to you and help hold you accountable, they're still going to give you grace in that imperfection if you're brave enough to continue to stay in the dialogue.
Amen. Amen to all of it. I was thinking about the time, I think it was like 3 condors ago, where I'm on stage and I'm teaching and you're like, that's a bit fast for people. And I was like, a bit fast for who? For you? You said it once and then you said it again. And I was like, is it too fast for you? And you were like, yeah, I'm actually looking to learn what you're teaching too. And I had taken for granted that you understood this stuff beforehand. And it was one of the newer concepts that I had brought onto stage. And it brought up a lot of emotion in you. And so I stopped everything that I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I got off the stage and I came over and I thanked you for being honest. And I asked you what you wanted to do or what you needed at that moment. And so this is where I stopped. I paused. I pulled back. I scanned myself to see where I was because I could have got into a really funky place if I chose to and shut you down. But I did actually bypass the idea that you were looking to learn this stuff too. And so when you were honest, and that was one of the things that I really appreciate about you. I appreciate about you all the time, but you were honest. You were like, I want to learn this stuff. And like tears started coming out of your face. And
because you're so brilliant and smart.
I love you.
And sometimes your smartness and some of your big words go over my head a little bit.
So I thank you, girl. And so I had to slow down and I had to do an intake on myself and an intake on you. And then I asked you what you wanted to do. Right? I pulled the microphone away. I was like, what do you want to do? And you were like, I want to learn this stuff. And I want you to keep going. And I was like, that's what I want. And I told everybody in the room, like my intention was to slow down. And I asked everybody, is there anybody else who needs me to slow down? And there was other people that raised their hand. And so that intake let me be in a space of intentionally slowing down so I could teach the stuff that I needed to teach. And then we all got back into the space of transformation together because it was transformative for all of us.
Yeah, it gets everyone more cohesive.
Right. And so there was, that could have been a space where it could have gone completely different. I could have completely bypassed you. They could have built up some resentment and anger in you, and it could have been some things that you could have approached me backstage like other people do later on, or you could have went and told somebody else something about me. There could have been a whole bunch of other dynamics that could have happened as a result of that. But since I chose to pause, pull back, physical scan, lean into an intake with you, reset my intention for teaching, and then move into that space and then integrate with the entire group of people.
And my intention is to be honest, so I show up in that moment when you ask.
Right.
And I had to pause and pull back so that I could really drop into what I was experiencing in my own body.
Yeah. And so this is how we ride the process all the time. And so we don't stop our process because we're working and we need to
we're
look,
the leaders.
or we need to look a certain way. We are not in this. I know I'm not in this on some guru shit. I'm in this on I got some tools and I want to share this with some other people.
It changed our
best,
life.
And the best way for people to actually lean into it is to see it in a practical space. How many opportunities during a seminar do you get to practically apply stuff? I've been certified. I'm a master NLP certified person.
Bro, we have more letters and certificates that we never talk about, which is funny.
And it's wonderful to put stuff into place in theory, but when you're dealing with your loved one right there, and there's a space of confrontation, not necessarily conflict, but something to confront, to put in front of you and to actually navigate it, we do that in real time so people can see what that is. And people have come to us. I know they've come to me, and you've told me they've come to you too. And sometimes they come to us together and they're like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I needed to see that modeled. I needed to see that there's a potential. I needed to see that y'all are real people. We're not on some guru stuff here. We're real people. We got these tools. We want to show you how to use it because when we need it, we need you to swing through and be able to support.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and here's another example. Right after the last Condor Approach, it was me, you, Dice's wife, right? And Mandy Witters, right? And we were all at Barton Springs sitting there. And I had all this stuff going down with my family, right? Around people's business being thrown out into the family text thread and all of this stuff. And I'm talking and tears start streaming down my eyes and I'm bent out of shape about it. And at one point I had said, man, I feel like I'm getting tired of doing all this work and my family they won't lean into it. And they I can help all these other people and my family won't lean into it. And I stopped talking and everybody stopped. And then Mandy took a deep breath and she said, I'm going to let you sit in your lie. Right. And she leaned into it. She took a pause. She did an intake, right, in an inventory of what I was saying, but she also took an inventory of the past experiences that she and I have had together. Now, we used to go to Kuya together. She used to come to my psychedelic office hours, and I always told her, she would come and she would watch me support people, and she'd be like, man, what can I do? I was like, look, if you ever see me out of integrity with what I say I want to be aligned with, I want you to bring it to my attention space. And so she was like, really? I was like, really? This is why I'm doing this work, because I want people to be able to see me when I can't see myself. And so she saw me falling into this place where I was in a triangle, right? I was claiming the victim space of my family. And she said, I'm going to let you sit in your lie. And you and I both know that you have spoken many a time about how your family has shifted and changed. So I'm going to let you sit in that lie right now. And I'm also going to remind you of what you asked me for in the past. And that's to bring you back around when it seems like you're out of alignment. And so what she did was she did an intake on me. She leaned into her intention and my intention, right? Of what do I want to know, do, be, understand? And then she moved into a space of taking that information that she got from me before and the information now, applying it into a space to support me in transforming into a space where I felt safer with myself and I could actually integrate with the realization that I did have some changes in my family. I have seen changes in my family, and to snap back into my reality space so that I could integrate that moving forward. That is how this process works. And when I have other people that can support me in that, it's easier for me to feel whole. People will look at me and be like, well, you made these concepts and these concepts came from you. That doesn't mean that I'm infallible. It doesn't mean that I'm without challenge in my life. It doesn't mean that I'm without need for support and integration. This is where me and you at the Condor Approach, this is what another thing that I feel like sets us aside is that we are not up on stage on some guru shit. We're on some, hey, listen, we're some real human beings. This is what we use. This is how we navigate it.
If anything feels over your head or anything, like say something.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing is like the times that we have paused, or if there's concepts I wasn't quite understanding or whatever, by you pausing for me and me expressing it, and then other people find permission that like, oh, well, it almost gave them relief to know, well, if Cole doesn't even get it, then it's okay that I'm still learning this too. Yeah. Because whether or not, if you're in a position of leadership, people are going to pedestalize you regardless. And it's understanding, no matter how much you say, don't do that, they do. They look up to you. And the thing is, like, it's not for us to make sure people don't do it. It's just to remind them that we're people by actually modeling, showing that, being honest and open and real, so that they go, oh, right, they're people. I forgot, because we look up to people, we admire people, we love people, and that pedestalization, we can pedestal up or pedestal down. And so that's one of the core reasons why being in person is so important. Yeah. You feel each other, you see each other, and learning this stuff behind a screen, though we offer that too, it's just not the same.
It's not the same thing. And, this process is built into and baked into everything that we do. Doing an intake. And I think we've talked a lot about doing an intake. We've talked a lot about intention setting too, but we haven't really gotten granular with the in space. And when we talk about in space consists of the acute phase of transformation, right? Of change, of living, of being in your process of whatever it is. And that there are two main components to that. There's the sets and there's the setting. Right. And so when we people talk about set and setting in psychedelic spaces all the time, I don't hear it spoken about in other transformational spaces very much. But the set is usually people speak about mindset. But at the Condor Approach, we teach about the mindset, the body set, the social set, the construct set, which would be your identity, race, religion, gender, ethnicity, blah, blah, blah. We have podcasts on that. Your emotional set and your financial set. These are all the sets that you can be in. Right?
And really, there's infinite more, but that's just like a great starting point.
Yeah, that's the 6 that we
categorize.
Yes. That's the 6 that we talk about at the Condor Approach. And people are not considering all these things. When you go into a transformation or when you go into life, what is your mindset? What is your body set? How is your nutrition? Right? Are you hydrated? If you're going to be moving into a transformational space and you're not hydrated and you're hungry and you're hangry.
Or going in, if you're going to go have a challenging conversation with your partner or spouse and you're dehydrated and hungry, the likelihood that your sets are in alignment for the outcome that you want is not so great.
It's not so great. And so this is where having an intention on, are you going to get your sets to align for your transformation?
For the desired outcome.
This gives you the granularity to really do a strategic approach to things.
Well, that's the dieta for a psychedelic experience, right? It's the preparation for the in-space. In that you have the intake, the intention, what do you want to know, do, be, or understand? Then a preparation of the sets. You have to get your money together for the retreat. You have to get your mindset together. Maybe you're not consuming the news or, things like that. You don't have to, but it's the opportunity to reflect on your body set, your nutrition, how you're preparing your body, your sleep cycles, your emotional sets. And it's something that, like you said, most people only consider the mindset. When if you have a desired outcome and intention, then there is action required to influence, right? Because it can't control, that can influence the outcome that you want as you enter in space, and then the integration of whatever comes through in the in space.
Yeah. And so those sets are really important. And in getting them to integrate together, getting them to work and play and drive together, I feel is tremendously important and beneficial. When a person, when we were guiding people in psychedelic experiences, us having that front end information on their sets let us know the potentials and possibilities of what might happen during the psychedelic experience. And that can be translated into coaching. That when I do my one-on-one clients, long, ridiculous intake process where I get to know all of their sets as much as possible, right? Because there's always stuff that's going to come up. But I get to know as much as possible so I have some information so that I can drive back and forth and I can integrate with them in that space. So the sets are important, and also the setting. Where's your life taking place? Where is your transformation taking place? This is where, when we talk about, Halloween time, when people are going and doing psychedelic experiences in graveyards, right? Or people are just out in the street in masks and stuff. All of that has to do with the setting and the environment. What is the place that you're
or if someone's going to do it in their own home and it's not safe there.
Yeah, but what is the setting like? Are you in a place where you are being or have been physically or mentally or verbally
Emotionally.
assaulted? All these things are really important. Is there a painting of somebody on a wall in your house that reminds you of something in the past that was disruptive to you? These are all parts of the setting. And so making sure that your sets and setting are aligned with your intention, tremendously important and beneficial. You don't have to do anything for any of it.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to optimize, which is what the Condor Approach is about, is optimizing relationships, being at your set, having a relationship to your sets, important. Your money, your finances, your body, your mindset, your social set, your construct set, all of these things are very important to have a relationship with. Also, having a relationship with the environment. Have you been oriented to the environment that you're exploring things with or living in? Very important things. And then moving from there, the integration space is how we tie all of this stuff together in day-to-day waking life with your career, with your family, with the food you eat. How do you pull all this stuff together? And I think one of the things that we have that's a real gem in the Condor Approach is that 7-day and the 30-day guide that we have that you came up with from your experiences that have helped you to integrate all of the things that you need to integrate. I'd love to hear, your vantage point on that.
Yeah, I feel like that can be a whole other episode in itself that maybe we'll dive into. That, the Condor Approach first started as a book before it was anything else. It was a guide to self-awareness. Again, mapping emotions, understanding a bit of there's certain pain in my body that happens when there was certain things going on in the set and setting, and in my environment or around certain people or with certain foods. But more of it had to do with mapping the emotion sets along with some of the other things going on in my life and past things in my life. And so whether it was fibromyalgia or endometriosis or migraines or broken bones, it started to get to the point where every injury or chronic pain was a signal from my body trying to tell me something. That started to influence my intake process. When I looked back and timelined, which is another exercise we teach our coaches, how to timeline your whole life since really your birth story, if not further, while your mother was pregnant with you, to what were the injuries? What was there any surgical, procedures? Was there any accidents that didn't even leave a scar? Were you in a tornado? What things were happening in the environment at times you had injury? Or I would get throat infections and things like that regularly, ear infections. When you start to understand body mapping, when you start to track it, you start to see that there are no coincidences, and it's not that it's strictly this. I'm not even going to, it's a whole other episode that I just want to do because it's
Cool.
a whole thing.
I'm down for it.
But it's that the more that I started to understand that my body acting up was giving me data that would help me in my intake process before a psychedelic experience. I'm not going to go do ayahuasca if I'm having adrenal fatigue and my body's very tired, because through an intake process on myself, forget the guide. I choose to take an intake on myself first. Ayahuasca is a very physically taxing experience. So if my adrenals were burnt out and I'm exhausted and I didn't have any energy, being in a group of 70 people, which would never happen, but neither here nor there, probably not. I won't use a definitive, but I can't imagine in my current model of the world that would work for me. Would my energy be able to handle that in my intake process? What's my intention? I might just need some rest, okay? My intention is rest. So in my intake process, perhaps this psychedelic experience is not really going to align my intention with what I want to experience in space as I enter into integration. So that we have so many tools for people that are free. We have 7-day courses, we have free courses, we have the Condor Approach book. So even if someone can never come to a live Condor, which I have to tell you, if there is any way to make it happen, and we actually are partnering with a financing company that really, it took a long time for me to actually feel comfortable with this, because the financial set thing matters to me. And as I've watched the impact this has had on people's lives, I would 1,000% finance it if it was my way to go. Personally, I'm not saying anyone else should, because luckily we had each other in developing this, but if we hadn't, I would have absolutely, for $1,000 for 3 days, the pain that it has saved, the ease in our life, the places we've gotten to travel because we could deconstruct safety and security and constructs and alignment, bro, it's life-changing.
Agreed.
And, we can't wait to see you. We know at some point you're going to come because you've been listening, all right? I know with how many people listen to the podcast, how many have been, which leads me to also know a lot of y'all keep listening. You keep thinking about it. And maybe you haven't had the money on a credit card and you would consider financing it. I want you to hit reply on one of our emails, shoot us a message on Instagram, and let's get it going. The next one is 5 weeks away, September 12th to the 14th. It's at a huge, stunning ranch. Now, the on-site lodging has already sold out. We have people flying in from Bali, from South America, from all over the United States.
Barcelona.
Yep, from Barcelona. So you're going to be in a room of people who are committed to being who they know they're meant to be, who have maybe made some imperfect decisions, but they're going to continue to show up, and they're going to be there with you and for you the way they already have been for each other. And the beautiful thing with condors is they're not into the surface, all right? They'd rather see you for 3 days, go deep, all in, and not talk to you for 6 months, because everyone's got family and kid and life. But if you need them, you have dice to call in our community. There's monthly calls just to tap in. If you're ever just, needing some of that support, we've got it there. And I'm going to start, we can sit and tell you this all day long, but I'm going to start weaving in for all of y'all some of the amazing things people have said about coming, how it changed their life, whether they were a therapist or a psychedelic therapist who saw how effective these methods are, or veterans, or, the list goes on and on. Parents, who are just like, wow, I desire to help my kids because I'm not the same person I was since awakening or since becoming more aware. And I've got some cleanup work to do, and I don't know how to explain it to my kids, this new person I'm becoming. So come learn the Condor Approach. There's simplified concepts that you can teach a 5-year-old.
And with that, y'all, thank you so much for joining us on the Psychedelic Coach podcast. We appreciate you. We do not do a ton of advertising here, so please rate, review, subscribe, and share this with a friend so that the word can get out. What we're doing here is game-changing stuff, and we want you to have access to this, and we want you to help other people have access to this. And we know there are people that are like, I want to have that one. This is my best-kept secret. No, don't make it your best-kept secret. Tell everybody. No. If this has helped you, if this has given you some perspective, if any of our podcast episodes have helped you, please share it with somebody you think it will support.
Yeah, or leave us a review. If you're not going to share it with anybody, if you're going to be stingy, if you're going to be greedy, then at least leave us a review, fam. We love you so much. I hope to see you in September, and we'll see y'all soon. Peace.
Peace.